Hey, welcome to the Sua Sponte podcast. I'm Ken Harper, your host, and today I'm with Mike Greenwood from the Commit Foundation. He's the Director of Veteran Services, and he's going to tell us about his company and how they help veterans when they're transitioning out of the military. So, Mike, I know you were in the military. Did you want to give everybody just a rough rundown of your time in the military and what you did and where you served?
Yeah, I was Army, regular Army, enlisted infantry out of the good old Fort Drum, New York, the frozen tundra. Served from 2003 to 2007. Fort Drum was blessed with one trip to Afghanistan and one trip to Iraq. Got out and joined the New York Army National Guard. When I got out, everybody was jumping into the Guard because the thought was that they were going to call everybody back up because we just went through our first stop loss in so many years. So I enlisted in the New York Army National Guard and hung out there for a year and 10 months. And while I went to college in New York City, and shortly before I graduated school, I finished up with the Army.
So, what are some things that you like about your foundation that you wish you would have had provided to you when you were separating from the military, I guess, and or the Guard?
I'd say, Ken, the easiest thing that we do, which is also the hardest thing we do, is have a solid conversation with people when they're getting out. Hey, who are you? What's important to you? And what do you want to do with your life? Many times, as you know, going through TAP and all the other transition programs out there, they're not designed to put you in a position to talk about yourself. They're designed to put you in a position to act, to be tactical. Hey, let's get you a resume. Let's get you a job. Let's teach you how to wear a suit, and let's send you on your way. Although that's great, that tends to lead to a lot of discomfort, later on down the line when you're separated away from your guys, from your team, from the military. So at Commit, we like to say that we're a gentleman's course in self-leadership. So when you get out, we believe that you are going to be most successful if you pause, you pump the brakes in the beginning and just say, hey, what is important to Ken? What are the things that Ken values? What is the framework that he has built for himself or needs to build for himself, so he makes it easy to make a decision or to say yes to opportunities as they come up. We've all heard the idea, I'm sure, that take the first job you get. It doesn't matter. You're gonna quit it anyways. We've heard. You're smiling. I'm sure you've heard it. That's not true, man. Like, if you do the work up front and you spend some time with yourself and you find the right job, on the first time go, that's okay. You can be happy in that job, and that's the gap we're trying to cover is there's happiness to be found if you pump the brakes. Hey man, what's important to you? Let's figure that piece out first before you just start reading job descriptions and job postings.
So, is that one of the things you feel like you would have really served you well when you transitioned out?
Dude, yeah. I thought, I believed that I wanted to work on Wall Street. I wanted to wear a nice suit to work, and that was all that mattered. When I was in college, I got a internship on Wall Street at AIG, and there at this time, probably 6 months after I was there, the FBI stormed the office, and the financial crisis hit New York, and I was working at Wall Street. Here I am, some knucklehead, knuckle dragger. I'm just highlighting financial documents, and the FBI comes in and like, "Hey, stop! What are you doing?" And kind of kicked us all out of the office. But I didn't know why I wanted to do that type of work. I love personal finance. I love money. It's very enjoyable for me. And in my line of work too, I'm also a financial coach and financial counselor. So I believe that, if we sit down for long enough and we look at your budget, we look at how you spend your money, I can see what you value in life. So that's what I really liked. But I had to stumble, and I didn't realize that until 2019. And I got out of the Army active duty 2007 and Guard and Reserve end of 2008. So it took me a good, 10 plus years to figure out what I liked about it. because I was young. I didn't know that it's okay to say, "Hey, what do you like? What's important to you?" I didn't know that those are questions men ask themselves. I thought that was, personally, this is not true, but I thought that it was a weakness to show that much interest in yourself. Like, you should know what you're doing. You're in the infantry. What's wrong with you? You went to war twice. You're a tough guy. Just go do it. Go make money for your family, right? But if somebody would have stopped me and grabbed me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, man, what are the things that are important to you? What are you trying to accomplish in life?" I don't know where I'd be, Ken. I'm happy with where I am now, but I don't know what that path could have looked like had I had this intervention, prior to bumping my head 8 times.
Well, and that's one of the things, like, we're doing this podcast to help guys with, is that
Yep.
try to soften the blow, get out, not have to wait 10 years till you figure out what you're doing, but hopefully make that separation process like a 2 or 3 year process instead of a 10-year one.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things, like, like, we all serve in the military, and you and me kind of talked about in the past about service and like how important that was to you, like being in the military, and even now, like coaching with your kids lacrosse team. Do you feel like you get a lot of fulfillment from what you're doing at this job? And then also, like, what other things that do you do now that you feel like you really serve in?
Yeah. Absolutely. The short answer is yeah, total fulfillment. I mean, I'm saying yes with 4 coaching sessions for my daughter's lacrosse team under my belt. Okay. So you may want to talk to me in 3 months to see if I still like it. But I think in the context you and I were talking about this offline was finding your purpose and understanding what's important to you and how to continue a life of service. And what does service look like on the outside? It's not just, beans and bullets, right? It's more than that. It's who you are as a person, and how do you pull the strings that make you feel comfortable with the life that you're living. So I continue to serve people every day. My wife, my daughter, my neighbors. If you need help with something, you need help cutting down a tree. Like, I consider that my service to people. On a professional level, I need to be in a role where I am helping people become better at being themselves. And it took me a long time to understand that, like, that's what my purpose was, because I spent a long time thinking that purpose was going to be a unicorn sitting on top of Mount Everest that I was going to be able to go up and grab. And I got it. I figured it out, guys. Like, this is my purpose. And it wasn't until a few months ago, honestly, Ken, that I was sitting at this desk, probably on a call with another veteran. And I said, you know what? Like, it's simple. My purpose is just helping people. And, like, I found so much comfort in saying that, helping people become better. Like, I found comfort in saying that, because what I didn't realize is that I was trying to make the action my purpose. And that's what a lot of us do, because we're used to action, right? Get up, do PT, go to the range, clean your weapon, go clean the trucks, right? Like, that's what we're used to doing. And we don't spend a lot of time thinking about, like, the why behind it. It's just do it. So that's what I thought purpose was. But, understanding that service to others is my purpose, and helping people, and specifically helping people become better at being themselves, as super, comfort level for me doing that. Whether it's, currently I'm helping my daughter's lacrosse team as an assistant coach. I'm also serving on the HOA board here in our community. And then on Sunday, I was, I guess, asked to be on the parish council at my church again, to help guide the leadership there. So it's, without that understanding of this is why I'm saying yes to this stuff, I think I would be a little overwhelmed and have a lot of anxiety, because I have to go to lacrosse on Saturday. Sunday at 1:00, I have to go to a church meeting. Sunday at 2:00, I have to go to an HOA meeting. And then guess what? I got to come home and be a father, but there's a level of comfort that I have for understanding that, like, my purpose and my, my movement through life at this point is now to help people become better at being themselves, whether that's, collectively as an organization, where the HOA or the church, or individually with, the 5 veterans that I talked to today, or the people that we're reaching on this podcast. So there's a level of comfort that I think I've achieved by understanding that, service was part of my life. It didn't have to just be the military. It could take on many different shapes and forms.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's good is finding that leadership and service, because for a lot of us that were in the military, we want to serve people, we want to take care of people, and we want to just continue to help them, whether that's being a leader or being a subordinate, but doing a good job in that. If you could go back, and maybe you already answered this, maybe not, but if you could go back and talk to a young you, what would be something you would tell yourself?
Trust. Trust yourself, man. um, as I'm sure you do as a man, we question a lot of things we do, and reflect on. We should be reflecting on a lot of things that we do. I didn't trust myself to make decisions early on, whether the outcome was good or bad. Whether I made a good decision in the military or not, or on a sports team or whatever. I didn't understand why I was doing it, and I didn't trust myself that it was good enough. So I would say, I'd go back and say, hey, man, trust who you are and what you're capable of doing. My background is, American, straight up, like poor welfare, welfare line. I'm a little older than you. Like we literally had to stand in a line to get cheese and, powdered milk. And there's a lot of my younger self was afraid to kind of acknowledge that or address that or recognize that I came from that. So there was which led to, trust me, there's a connection here, but it led to a life of not believing in myself. So I would say, hey man, like you're capable of doing good things. Like just pick your head up and go do it and trust in yourself. Because again, that young E5, when I got out, somebody would have just smacked me on the hand and said, "Hey, come on over here. Let's have a talk." Who knows where you could be if you had some guidance. So I'll tell you, if you are in a position to acknowledge who you are, trust yourself. There's nothing better than standing up and saying like, "All right, I accept you for who you are, man. Let's go do this." Because my guess is that's what you did when you were in Ranger School. Hey, I can take this next step. I can hit another mile. I can make this happen. And you trusted in yourself and you believed in the process. So, long story short, I would say, hey man, trust who you are.
All right. So I just want to transition now from talking about you to just talking about Commit and ask you, what services does Commit Foundation provide to soldiers?
Okay. Most people who come through Commit are coming through because they're in a position in their life or their career where they want to have the hard question with themselves. So, like I said earlier, a gentleman's course in self-leadership. So, most everybody starts with two pieces. Piece number one is an online platform that we've developed. It's called Pursue Your Purpose. Listen, man, it's not a magic pill. It's not anything that you or anybody listening to this has not experienced in prior leadership development or professional development courses. But what it is it's an opportunity to be guided through self-reflection, self-awareness, hopefully gaining a sense of clarity towards the end around yourself and what you want to accomplish. It's simple things like, what do you value and why? When I instruct people to go through it, I tell them to don't do what we did in the military, right? Don't sit down and circle or write down your 3 to 5 values. Raise your hand and you go, and everybody claps for you, and the next guy goes, right? You've seen that before, I'm sure. That's not the intent here. The intent is to learn something about yourself. So what I tell them to do, I'll steal a number from you guys. I tell them to pick out your 3 to 5. And then go back through and pick out 175 bullet points as to why, or 275, 200, or 375 bullet points, whatever you need to at that point, and define that value so deep that at some point you start to realize, like, this is why I'm making decisions this way, because of this piece of something that I hold dear to me, being your value. So there's that. Nobody's checking scores, nobody's giving scores. Nobody's checking answers. There's no leaders board. Ken, there's not even a certificate at the end of it. You get to the end of it and it's like, oh, that's it. We're done. That's it, man. You've been led through that. Hopefully you put the time in and the effort into asking yourself hard questions and forcing yourself to develop a hard answer, which in turn becomes easy for you to see who you are. So that's piece number one. I was long-winded. Piece number two is involves me introducing you to a trained and experienced executive coach. We use coaches who are veterans themselves. We only have two of them who are not veterans, but they are highly skilled executive coaches. I connect you to a coach, and then the Commit Foundation pays for you to talk to a coach for 5 sessions, up to 5 sessions. We do not use volunteers. We use paid professionals. The difference there is I've been in the veteran nonprofit space for about 14 years, and I've dealt with a lot of volunteers. Volunteers are great. I'm a volunteer myself, but what did we describe earlier? We volunteer with the time that we have left at the end of the day. So we want to make sure that you're getting the time that you need to be guided through a conversation on yourself. So therefore we use the paid professionals. So that's the start of Commit, those 2 pieces. Thoughts, questions, ideas around that before I tell you other pieces?
No, I think those good. It's essentially like helping guys find like what they're kind of good at. Would you say that like they're not necessarily their strengths and weaknesses, but maybe what they're gifted in?
Absolutely, yeah. Fill in the blank, brother. For every person, it's different. Do you want to define what your skills are? Do you want to define who you are as a man, who you are as a soldier, who you are as a mother? We have women who come through as well. So I don't know what you're gonna pull back, and I think that's the beauty of it is we're not here to tell you, hey Ken, you do all this, brother, you're going to be successful. That's not what we do. That if you get an organization like that, you guys should turn around and walk away, because they don't know you. Maybe they're going to put some time in to get to know you, but at the end of the day, we're giving you tools to help you build upon who you are. That's it, and that's what coaching does. That's what Pursue Your Purpose does. Now, after you go through that, about 15 to 18% of our people will take the next step and they'll go to an in-person workshop. So we have roughly about once a month now, we have in-person workshops. They're 2 days. Day number 1 is a deeper dive into some of the concepts you're going through in Pursue Your Purpose and coaching. And day number 2 is a mentoring and networking workshop. So we invite mentors from around the country, primarily from around the city that we're in for that given workshop. And they come in and they talk about what it's like to get out of the military. Some of them are vets. Some of them are business professionals. Some of them are just people who care about you and me as humans and want to help us succeed. And that tends to be a really high impact event. We actually have one finishing up tonight in Nashville, and they hit hard. They're pretty good because it's a small group, roughly 20 people. Any given event, 20 is probably the max. And they tend to be people who are in the same transition window. So you're not going to get a guy who's 2 years out, or you're not going to get a guy or girl who's been out for 3 years. You're generally going to get somebody who's within that 6 to 9 month, I guess, window of getting out. So you're all kind of experiencing these things in your own right, but you come together in this event to kind of, challenge each other through it and stuff like that. So like I said, 15 to 18% of people go through that. After that, we don't just kick you out and say, go figure it out. We enter into a tactical phase. So there's a couple follow-up conversations with myself and my other 2 coworkers, but mostly it starts the interview phase, resume interview, and salary phase, hopefully. So we connect you with a resume coach who is not a resume writer. It's a resume coach. We have a gentleman who is a legitimate expert in military resumes. He wrote the book, and that's not a phrase. He literally wrote the book on military resumes, and he works at a Fortune 50 company, and he's seen a solid number, hundreds of thousands of resumes. So he will sit down with you and say, all right, Ken, you're applying for a truck driver position at I don't know, Molson Canadian. What about your background as a ranger makes you think you should get this job? Okay, hang on, don't include that. Let's include this stuff. Tell me more about this. Your experience connects to this job this way, so let's try saying it that way. So he's basically a resume ninja. So he takes the resume you have and the job you're going after, and he tries to pair you up with it as best as possible for who you are as a person. That is unmatched in the game. A lot of people, as a veteran myself, I've witnessed this. A lot of people will just say, "Hey, Ken, here's your resume," and expect it to be great. But it's not. It's got to be customized, man, because you're not like every other ranger that came before you, nor are you like the ones that are coming after you. I'm going to shut this door. Sorry, my dog's barking. So after that comes the interview phase. So we do not do interview prep, but we do interview strategy. So I know I'm splitting hairs here with those two, but the difference is interview prep is going to say, "Hey, Ken, you should be answering questions this way." Nope, that's not good. Don't say that. Dress this way. That's interview prep. Interview strategy now is, Ken, you're looking at this job at Molson Canadian as a truck driver, as a ranger. Here's your experience. This is what they're looking for as a truck driver. You should try to tell me these 3 to 5 stories as they relate to you and as they relate to the job that you're going after, because that's going to paint the best picture of you as a candidate. Last piece, I swear I'll be done in a second. Last piece is salary negotiations. So let's be real, we've never asked the government for a raise in the military, nor have we been allowed to. So that piece that messes with a lot of people's head. Like, how do I ask for more money, Mike? I shouldn't do that. What's a good package look like? Are these good benefits? So you could sit down with myself or the other two, my coworkers, or that gentleman, Scott, again, and just say, all right, Ken, this is what they're offering you. This is what it means. This is what you can negotiate. This is what you can't negotiate. This is what this means for your, as a package. This is, things like that kind of help you navigate through that. And at that point, we're slapping you on the back and saying, good job, man. Come on back and be a mentor when the dust settles.
Well, and I mean, one thing, like in Ranger Battalion, we're always told is to be like silent professionals. And so like one thing I've really struggled, since I've gotten out with is like telling people about myself. I make a resume and it's like Ranger school from this date. This is when I graduated, and so it's like, it's none of that like over the top expression stuff. So I'm sure the resume ninja really helps there. And then, I mean, a lot of that stuff, we don't even know to ask for.
Yeah, it's challenging, Ken. I mean, we're not given the freedom to be ourselves. And I think we go back to your earlier question. What would I tell that younger version of myself? Again, be yourself, right? Like we are ingrained, or excuse me, it is ingrained in us to be part of the team. Ken, you can't be good unless 5 people below you and around you are good. And let's be real, man. Like you can be good. Obviously we want to say it in a humble way, like how good you are. But there are things that you can do that the ranger to your left and right can't do. And it's okay for you to say, hey, man, this is how I'm unique, right? Because that's what we're missing, right? Because we're all wearing the same uniform. The only thing that's different is this little name tag. I don't know if that's the right side, but it's a little name tag we have on our chest. So we're helping you. See who's underneath that uniform ultimately, and so you can have that conversation. This is what I did in Ranger School. This is why I graduated Ranger School. Not because you ran, every day, and not because you sucked it up and you dealt with being cold, but what traits and what abilities and what skills did you have that drove you through that? That's what they're going to hire. They're not going to hire the Ranger School graduate. They're going to hire the guy who can tell me why he got through there. What he called upon, in his heart and in his mind and his body to get him through that. So that's what coaching is going to help you realize is like, yeah, you're not just a guy who was able to run. You're not just a guy who was able to jump out of a plane. What pieces of you made that possible? That's so hard it's so hard to see, if you're not being forced / guided to see that.
Who do you guys serve? Like any soldier, rank, job, location? What's your specifics on that? Sergeant Major, private?
Yeah, today I talked to, my first call was with a E4, 6 years. He'll hit 6 years when he gets out next year. So E4, 5 years, um, Air Force, I believe. And then the last guy that I talked to was a 29-year 05 Army infantry guy who's now doing a couple other cool jobs in the Army who's getting out. So long story short, Ken, if you are willing to come over and put the work in, we will have the conversation with you. We don't say, sorry, young E3, you can't have the conversation. We don't say, you must be in the military for X amount of years in order to have this conversation. If you are willing to put in the work and put yourself through a gentleman's course in self-leadership, come on over. It's not easy. It's not easy for our population. Let's be real. Like, how many of the guys be like, "Oh, I'm not doing that stuff, man. I don't need that." I work with another organization in my free time called Huts for Vets, and what we're doing there is we are bringing guys and girls up into the mountains of Colorado, and we're introducing them to nature healing, nature as a healing mechanism for leaving the military, right? But we're also using literature. We're using hard literature to push you through conversation and through thought. That's not for everybody. We've gotten guys on that trip who are like, dude, I'm out. I don't want to do this. I'm not doing this stuff. I don't care that this tree is alive. I thought we were coming up here to race up the mountain, man. And I'm like, no, that's another organization. Go have fun. So, it's, if you're willing to put in the work, you're willing to have the conversation, come on over. The application is a good buffer for us. I can tell when I get an application from somebody, it's not just name, rank, social security number, all that jazz. It's not social security number, but it's not just the typical thing we're used to giving in the military. We're asking people what's important to them. We're asking them what's challenging for them. We're asking them why they're getting out. We're asking what their plans are. We're asking them what they think they want to do, what their future accomplishments are. We're asking them hard things to push them through thought. So when I get an application, I know right away, hey, Ken's invested. I'm going to talk to him. Or if you put the other knucklehead bed and put NA, like, hey, brother, drive on, go over to another organization. We're not the right stop for you. So it's it's not negative, but at the same time, it's if you're willing to have the conversation, we want you here. So anybody.
So when can a soldier apply to your program? Like 2 years out, 1 year out? Can they apply after they're already out?
Yes, and no. So the best time to apply is when you've made up your mind to get out. Let's start while we're in. To apply when you made up your mind to get out within like a 2-year window. You and I both know. My understanding is you didn't retire, correct, from the Rangers? No. Okay. So you and I both know that, like, if you and I would have come in and said, "Hey, I just joined. I'm only doing 4 years. Let me talk to commit." Like, there's a lot that's going to happen in that 4-year window. So it's really not the time for you to be planning for what's going to happen afterwards at this high intensity level. There are some things you can do to plan up to get out, and which you should do. So I'd say when you've made up your mind, or when you submitted the paperwork to either retire, or if you're an officer, to kind of turn in your commission there, or if you're like you and I, and you've turned down enlistment or re-enlistment or something like that, and you say, "I'm getting out, man." Make that, fill out the application. At the end of the day, if you come in and you're 2 years out, or you're 36 months out or something like that, chances are one of us are going to hop on a call with you and say, "Hey, what are your plans over the next 30 months? Okay, here's where we can sprinkle in some of this stuff and kind of slow play us up to the peak around the 12-month mark. And then we could dip you back in and start that resume and all that stuff later on." So, if you've made up your mind you are getting out, fill out the application. We'll have the conversation. But if you're at a point where there's so much Army left, or there's so much Navy or Air Force, or God forbid, Marines, all joking aside, left, if there's too much of that left, it's probably not the right time for you to be putting yourself through that, stress level of trying to figure this out right away. So slow play it, spend some time looking, evaluating careers or talking to buddies who've been out, because you and I know there's going to be guys who are getting out before us. So, hey, Bill, you've been out for 2 years, man. What's it like? Hey, Ed, I see that you're working on Wall Street. What's it like? I probably should have did that. And just have those type of conversations, because that's going to help you just as much as a course in self-leadership, as a coaching session, or as a workshop. That stuff's going to help you just as much, because you're going to get real world feedback into what it looks like on the outside. So let me answer your question more specifically. Around the 2-year mark is a good time to hit send on that application. But if you need to have the conversation a little further out, be prepared. We're probably going to slow play the process, because we know there's a lot of military left in that window. So right around 2 years is a good hit point.
I mean, that's helpful, because like in battalion, you kind of just get pitched out, and it's actually hard because a lot of your friends get out. You don't think about it. You don't call them. And then like for me, like 3rd Battalion was deployed when I got out, so I didn't really have anybody. So that was hard. But is there anything that prevents soldiers or veterans from applying, or you guys kind of select who you work with?
The only thing that would prevent them, legitimately prevent somebody from applying, is like a dishonorable discharge. We've talked to people who are going through the process of, UCMJ, and they're up in the air. They don't know what's going on there. We actively have somebody in the system now who's, going through that. A dishonorable discharge would be the only thing. Where we would say no is if we wouldn't even say no, to be honest with you. We just kind of kick it back. If you fill out an application and you wrote NA, or get a job, or make $6 million a year, if you were messing around, I had some guy this morning. I had to ask him about it. He said that he loved endurance sports, and he said, I can't remember exactly how I said it. I really love endurance sports, like fishing and gardening and going on walks with my child. And I told him, I was like, dude, hey man, are you lying to me here? Are you making fun of the process? What's going on here? So we might call you out on stuff like that if you're being a knucklehead. But he said I was going through a lot in the application. I was just trying to make a joke to lighten up myself. So I was like, all right, cool, gotcha. But ultimately, we'll have if you're not putting in the effort in the application, you won't say no, but we'll kick it back and say, hey, Ken, you might want to, spend a little more time on these answers. And I can tell if you're going to do it or not. So I guess that would be your only other barrier of entry, would be if you're not putting in the time on the application. Because we're not here to force you through our program, brother. We're here to help you discover something about yourself. Yeah. I don't have anything to give you, right? Except for challenge and questions, right? So it's not like we're giving you T-shirts and we're giving you jobs and we're giving you, water, all this other craziness. We're not giving you that stuff. We're sitting down and having a conversation with you and saying, hey man, what's important to you? Let's help you do something that makes you smile. What is that? And so it's a, primarily veteran to veteran type thing, where we're, having that conversation, saying, hey, come on, Ken, I know where you're coming from. Let's talk, man. And so that's not an easy thing for a lot of people. I know I said that 3 times already, but that's not an easy conversation. That's not an easy adjustment to somebody make coming from, Green Beret or Ranger Battalion or something like that, or Navy SEALs. We have a lot of SEALs that come in. So it's not an easy adjustment, but long story short, if you put in the effort, we're going to help you out.
Do that. And I'm sure you only get so much out of somebody. If they're holding back, it's going to prevent you from doing your job fully. So
I said, I'll tell you, we've had thousands of conversations with people. So we can, it's really, it happens rather quickly here. We can say, hey, Ken, what's stopping you from having this conversation? You're like, what are you talking about, Mike? We can smell it out pretty quick. So, I'd encourage people coming over to say, make the commitment, no pun intended, make the commitment to yourself to just have the conversation, man. It's going to make you feel better. I'll tell you, as somebody who, you know, knuckled through it, and bumped my head. I got out in '08, and I didn't find my way to the veteran nonprofit space as an employee until about 16. So I volunteered for a while, obviously, but um, at that point is when I finally stopped like bouncing around and saying like, why isn't this working? What's going on here? It's them. It's not me. I'm good. They're bad. You know, I had that conversation with myself so many times. So I'd say, you know, just go out, and if you're thinking about it, apply. Let's talk. If you show up to talk, show up to talk. You know, I had a mentor tell me at one point that if you get the opportunity to talk to somebody, that should be the most important person that you're talking to at that point, right? So take the time, be there, be present, and give them your respect, and expect their respect back from you. Because that's you never know what you're going to get out of that conversation. So if you apply, jump in, have the conversation. Don't be afraid to have it. We've had it thousands of times. We're not judging you, man. We're here to help you.
I thank you for all your time, Mike. I really appreciate it. I think it was very helpful. I hope that any veterans, um, that are in that 2-year window of separating out can reach out to you guys at the Commit Foundation, and hopefully, maybe they'll talk to you. I thank you for your wisdom, for the ability for you to talk about, the past and the things you could have done better. I know it's not easy to talk about, because everybody wishes we could go back and we only get one shot. So, again, I thank you. And like we always say here, Rangers lead the way.